Try to challenge to make him abstract and maybe really fun. All right, so I redid my color wheel and my value scale here, so let me show you. I just made it a little bit more tidy. I felt like the first one I did was rushing so that I could show you, and I didn't want to do that. So, and I don't want you guys to rush. I can't use my light because it makes that white paper completely disappear. So I used a template. I used a big paint bottle and I drew a perfect circle. And then I just used different shapes for my primaries. I connected my primaries with a triangle, and then my secondaries are half circles on the inside of the circle, and I also connected those with a triangle. And then my tertiaries are oval shapes in between. So each one should have a different shape. So all three primaries should be the same shape, all three secondaries the same shape, and all of your tertiaries the same shape, just so that when you look at it, you know what you're doing. And then your value scales, I'm going to show you how to mix paint. The first one on the top should be a secondary color with shades and tints mixed in. Remember, a shade is when you mix black into your color, and a tint is when you mix white into your color. And then the second value scale should be a tertiary color. So remember, a tertiary color is a color that's in between a secondary and a primary. So you can choose any tertiary and then mix your shade and your tint to get a value scale. So I've got my primaries on there. I would also like you to label this. Of course, you're going to need your name at the bottom, and then I want you to put all these words on here. So I want you to label all your colors and then write secondary and tertiary so I know you know the difference, and then shade and tint. Okay, so now we're going to go into mixing our secondary colors. So I'm going to start with red and blue. Now remember we talked about, well, which color is more intense? And I always sort of choose blue as the more intense color, which means that I'm going to put the red down first to mix a purple, and then I grab little bits of blue to get my purple. Try to get this cord out of the way here. I'm going to put my palette down here. So let's talk about things that you might need. Paper towel is always a good thing to have when you're mixing paint, because you have to clean your brush in between mixes. And having a big surface to mix is a good idea. So I typically like to put my paint on one palette surface and then mix on a second one, just to give myself more room. My colors here, this is Nasco paint that it's called Bulk Acrylic is the brand, and we get it from a company called Nasco. And I was telling you guys that the red and the blue in this mixture makes it kind of a weird purple. It makes sort of like a brown purple. And it doesn't really even look purple until you mix a little white into it. But I don't really want you to do that for your regular color wheel. It shouldn't have any black and white in it. It should only have pure colors. So just do your best to find a halfway point between that red and the blue. Find a purple that you think looks purple, not too blue, not too red. And then I'm going to put that into my secondary shape. So your secondary shape, purple, has to be between your red and your blue. That's the whole point of making a color wheel, is that it helps us figure out how to mix the colors. It's sort of an instruction guide. And then I use this to actually mix my tertiaries. So I have my purple, and now I want my purple to be more blue, right? My tertiary is like a blue purple. So I'm going to take half of this and I'm going to just mix more blue into it and try to get a much bluer purple. It's kind of like a grape color. Okay, so now and I can go pretty extreme with it if I want to, because it's never going to be pure blue anymore because it already has red in it. That's pretty good, and it has to look different than this one. I actually like that one a little better than the purple I mixed. And you guys don't have to do these shapes. You can do whatever shapes you want. You could have fun with it, get creative. All right, now I'm going to clean my brush because I want to get that blue off of there. When you clean your brush, you want to kind of go in sweeping motion and kind of drag it along the edge of whatever your water container is. You never want to stab it and shake it because you're going to really push those bristles out and it's going to be kind of hard to paint with that brush. And then I dry it with paper towel so that there's not a lot of excess water in my brush and my paint. All right, now I'm going to take that red and I'm going to put it on this other side of the purple and make a nice tertiary red purple, which is going to look a little bit brown. And you don't take it as far as you want to take it. There's always going to be blue in there. As I'm mixing, I'm kind of going in a swirly pattern. And I'm not pushing too hard on the brush. I don't want to ruin the brush. Okay, so now I have my tertiary red purple. I like to paint the shape. Load up your brush. If you ever find that you're painting and your brush is like running out of paint, it's like doing that, load it up again. You've got plenty of paint here. You want to do 2 coats, you can. And the paint's always going to look darker after it dries. Okay, so I'm going to clean that brush well, and I'm going to move on to my green here. The green is a secondary color, a mixture of yellow and blue. And you guys can be working on your thing right now while you're watching. I would like you to, so that you can get
which paper do we use?
a watercolor paper.
Is it the thicker one?
Yes. You don't want to paint on the drawing paper because it's just going to get bumpy. It's not
Miss
thick enough.
Greninger,
Yeah.
when you say we could work on something else, do you mean that we're gonna work on our like tint and shading and our color choices?
You guys are going to be starting this. You're starting this. Okay, so you're going to make this. Exactly what I'm doing. So you start that today. That is going to be due on Friday by the end of class. So I want you to be able to work on it today while I'm showing you. Okay, so everybody's getting out their watercolor paper, their brushes, their paint, a container for water, and some type of paper towel. Okay, when I'm mixing yellow and blue together to make green, I start off with yellow, right, because the blue is much more intense. And then it doesn't take much to get a green when you add that blue in there. My blue is kind of old, so it's sort of gummy. Mix it up real good. You don't want to see streaks of color in there. You want it to be a nice opaque solid green. So I'm going to just keep on going until I feel like I've got a nice green there.
Miss Greninger, you're moving a little too fast. Can you please slow down a little?
Oh, you do not need to work as fast as I'm working. Okay, I'm trying to go fast because I have a lot to show you today. You do not need to go the pace that I'm going. You can always go slower, okay?
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I'm recording this so you can go back and rewatch it while you're working after class if that's what you want to do.
Okay, thank you.
Miss Greninger?
Yeah.
For the watercolor paper, that's the last one I have.
Oh, is it?
The thick one that makes the sound.
I'm pretty sure I gave you more than one piece of watercolor paper.
Yeah, I think we used it. Oh, I only have one piece left.
What did you use it for?
For arts preview, I think.
Oh, you have different art supply packet for arts preview.
Oh.
Yeah, you should have picked up 2 different packets for those classes.
Yeah, but that didn't have paper in it, and you told us to use this paper.
It did have paper in it. Both your classes had paper. If you need more watercolor paper, Ovia, you can come to school. I'll leave some in the front office for you. But you should have more than one piece of watercolor paper for this class.
Do you mean this packet? This is the one I got for art studio.
Hang on, let me see. Yeah, it came with a roll of paper though. A separate roll of paper.
Oh, this paper? This roll?
Open it up. There could be some smaller pieces in there.
Oh, that's only the bigger one.
So Ovia, I'm not really sure why you don't have your watercolor paper, but if you need more, you can come pick it up, okay? But
Okay.
I did give more than one piece of watercolor paper to everybody, so maybe you just got them kind of mixed up with the other class.
Okay.
All right, guys, so now I'm adding yellow. I just made my green, so now I'm adding yellow to my green to make sort of a yellow-green. That's my tertiary color. And that goes between the yellow and the green. And then I'm going to add more blue to my green to make it more of a blue-green. I'm going to take a little bit out there. I don't need all that. And teal is one of my favorite colors. I love teal. So guys, make sure that you have, if you're going to do this on watercolor paper, make sure you have 2 pieces of watercolor paper because you need the second piece for your abstract painting. And Ovia, you could probably do your abstract painting on the other side of this.
Sure.
If you don't want to come back to school for another piece, you can just do it on the other side. All right, there's
Yeah,
my
I can do
favorite
that.
color, that teal color. All right, so now I just have one more set of secondaries and tertiaries to work on, and that's going to be my orange, my yellow, and my red mixed together. So red is more intense than yellow, so I'm going to grab the yellow, and then I'm going to slowly add the red to it. And I'm going to give you guys class today and also the whole class period on Friday to work on this. You see how quickly that red turns orange? And now it's too orange, so now I need more yellow. When you're grabbing your colors, make sure, like I wouldn't want to put green in there, so I have to make sure not to grab that green. All right, so there's a really nice orange. Put that in my secondary. I'm using my smaller brush because these are pretty tiny areas here. And then I'm going to mix my red orange. So I'm going to take a little bit of this out of here and I'm going to add more red to it. That's really, really red orange. Let me add a little bit more yellow. Sometimes you go too far and you're like, too much. So you have to go back and mix, mix, mix. When you guys are using your paint, my palette is not a good example of how much paint to put on your palette. This is way too much paint. I had an issue this morning with dry paint things and it just kind of poured out. But if you put a bunch of paint on your plate and you want to save it, just wrap it up, put some plastic over it. Saran wrap's really good for that. It should kind of keep it nice and moist for at least a day. All right, there's my red orange, and now I need to I'm going to wash my brush because I have way too much red in there. And then if you get paint, sometimes you get paint up in the metal part and that starts to get into your mixes, you want to make sure to clean it like that. Start fresh with each color. All right, so now I'm going to grab a little bit of this orange and I'm going to put more yellow in it. I'm almost running out of yellow here. I don't need too much. I don't want any green in there. All right, so that's a nice, I would call this color tangerine. There's a lot of really fun names for the tertiary colors. Tangerine, lime, magenta, grape. All you have to do is go to Lowe's or Home Depot and look at all those paint swatches, and there's so many fun names for color. Okay, so there's my color wheel. Let's see if I can get the camera to focus on it, right? So now you're going to label all of these things. So you're going to take your pen or your pencil, whatever you want, and just label the colors. You don't have to put primary, secondary, tertiary if you don't want to, but you want to definitely label them. So purple, green, orange is still wet, so have to be careful. You might want to label it before you paint it or after it dries. And then the tertiaries, the way that I like to name them is really simple. I go clockwise and I name it the two primary, secondary that are next to it. So this one would be called red, purple. Just keeps it real simple and it tells me how I mixed it. And then this one would be purple, blue. And then this one would be blue, green. This one would be green, yellow, with a hyphen in between. And this one would be yellow, orange. And then this one would be orange, red. Okay, so I'm just looking for those labels so that you can look back at the color wheel and know how you mix those colors. Okay, so now I'm going to teach you how to make a value scale using a color. We're going to choose a secondary color. So that's either going to be orange, purple, or green. I'm going to look at my palette here and see what I have the most of. I have the most of the green, so I'm going to use the green. So this is how you do it. You start off with your solid green color and you put it somewhere in the middle. Depending on how, like if you want more darks or lights. I tend to favor the lights, so I'm going to put my green in this box. There's 6 boxes here. They're 6 by 1 inch. So I'm going to take my green right as I mixed it, and I'm going to put it in this one of the middle boxes. I like to outline my box first with a nice loaded brush. Sort of drag it flatly along the edge. You get points for how tidy your painting is. And when we get to abstract painting, I'm not going to be giving you points for tidiness, obviously, but because this is a technical exercise and you're learning how to use your brush and put the paint down and mix it, I am going to give you points for tidiness. So try to keep it in the lines. And try to make your paint real thick. So that means you don't want a watery brush and you don't want a bunch of other colors in your green. Okay, so now I have a nice solid green. So now I need to take some of that green, not all of it, right, because I need it for both sides and I can't have it white in my black. I'm going to take a little bit of the green out and put a tiny bit of black in it. So I'm going to scoop it out. I don't need too much because that box isn't very big. And then I'm going to take just a scoop of black and I'm going to mix it into my green. And this shade should look darker than that when it's dry. And this shade on the end should look almost black. But of course it's never going to be pure black because it does have green in it. Okay, so now I've got a darker shade of green. You can already see on here that it's darker. And these shades these value scales are really important to learn how to use and mix, because when you're working on a painting, this is what's going to make your artwork have a lot of variety to it. It's going to help give it depth. If you wanted to paint things that had a light source and shadows, you're going to need to learn how to mix your shades and tints of your colors. Okay, so you can see that is a darker value than your green. And now I need to go one more darker. So I'm just going to use what I mixed here, and I'm just going to grab more black, because that's all I really need it for. And it's going to look black to you, but it's not the same black as this. It's definitely got a green tint to it, and you'll really see it when it dries. You'll see it much stronger. But it has to be darker than the one you just did. Do I have any questions? This is going to be due on the end of class on Friday. So you guys should all be working on getting this created. Okay, so now we have to wash our brush. We cannot go in with our greens and our blacks and mix the tints. You don't want any black in your tint. You just want green and white. So I'm going to go in and really wash that brush, get all the paint off the metal part, squeegee it with your paper towel or your toilet paper or whatever you have to clean your brush. You could even use a piece of like a rag that you might have for cleaning the house that your parents said you could use. And yeah. All right, so now I've got my green and I'm going to start mixing tints. So I could scoop a little bit out. It's always good to kind of save a little bit of paint first in case you need it for something else. And then I'm going to scoop some white into it. And here's the trick with this. You want your last tint to be almost white. So sometimes I go the opposite direction. I'll take the white and I'll mix the green into the white because the green is a lot more intense than the white. So I've got 3 to do here. So this is a good one for the next level. So now I have like kind of a nice mint color. Try to get right up against the other color. Okay, and then I'm going to jump right over to this lighter tint that I mixed over here. I think that's a nice jump. My brush is nice and loaded, full of paint. I'm dragging it along the edge, outlining that box. Putting the brush down in the corner there. Okay, now the trick with this lightest one is that I just take whatever's left on my brush that's green and I dip it in the white and I mix that. And that gives me a really, 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 really faint tint of that green. I want it to almost look white. And again, it gets darker as it dries. Any questions? You guys still here? You still watching and working? Can I get a shout out from someone? So I don't feel like I'm in a void. I'm talking to myself. All right, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so I'm gonna work on this and maybe not necessarily talk through it because I have tertiary on here somewhere. So you're just gonna finish this one off the same way, but you're gonna choose a tertiary, right? Which is either a red purple, blue purple, blue green, green yellow, yellow orange, or orange red. And it looks like on my palette I have a lot of orange red, so I could do an orange red, which will be fun because it's going to yield some pinks. Actually, I need to mix a little bit more in here. Let's take the leftover yellow and try to mix enough here to get by. So get that nice red orange, put it down in the same place as you did your green, unless you wanted to have more shades. Kind of depends on like what you're going to be painting. If you don't know, you guys don't know that yet because I haven't even given you any idea of how we're going to proceed with our abstract painting. We're still just kind of learning the tools that we're going to need to do the painting. Okay, so I've got my red orange, and then I'm going to pull some of that out to get a shade. I'm going to grab a little black, and you'll see I'm immediately going to have a brown here when I add black to red orange. So that's how you make a brown. You can make brown by mixing the 3 primary colors, or you can make a brown by mixing yellow, red, and black, because black has blue in it and blue has black in it. Okay, so now I have a nice brown color. That jumped really substantially to brown, didn't it? That black is very intense. You guys are going to be posting a WIP of your progress for today. FYI, heads up. Okay, now I'm going to grab a little bit more black and mix it into the last of that brown. This is almost black. Very dark. But it's kind of like a nice sort of magenta. Dark magenta. Colors are infinite. It's really, really fun when you start to get into color mixing as a painter because it's infinite. All you have to do is add a tiny little smidgen of another color and you have a whole new color. So just imagine the infinite possibilities of that. And then you start talking about tints and shades, and then you start mixing complementary colors to get duller tones. And then you have intense color, add more pigment. There's just a million different things you can do to make your colors different. And get a ton of different reds, ton of different oranges. I mean, all you have to do is go to Home Depot or Lowe's and look at all those paint swatches, and that's just a tiny little fraction of color. All right, so I've got my red orange, and now I'm going to go towards the tint, and I can just use what's left here because I'm just going lighter and lighter. Grab a little white. A little bit more. How are we doing on time? It's almost 10. We do have another video to watch for our checkout, so I'm going to be wrapping this up real quick. And you guys have to post your WIPs as well. So start getting ready, guys, to post your WIP. I recommend that you try to find some, like a plastic trash bag, or saran wrap is better because you can kind of see what you're doing when you put it on your palette. If you don't want to waste your paint that you just squirted out, put some plastic over it, and it won't last too long. It'll last, you know, a day or two. So you have to, if you're going to do that, just keep in mind that you have to use it up. You can't let it sit for a week and expect it to be still good. Okay, so now I got a lighter tint. Now I'm starting to get into a nice pink here. It's kind of like a salmon-y pink because there's orange there's yellow in here. This is not just a red and a white. So I've got a nice little tinge of yellow in there. I prefer to paint with tertiary colors because they're more complex. No, those two are pretty close to each other. I'm not sure if I like that. I might want to mix a little bit more white and do another coat on top. just so it's this tiny bit brighter. Okay, then I'm going to take the paint that's left on the brush and scoop up the white to get my light tint of pink, red, orange. So you will get points taken off if you don't use a secondary and a tertiary. The point of that is that I want you to learn how to mix your colors and not just take it straight out of the tube. And you can do just what I did, like, oh, I have a lot of orange, I'm going to use orange as my secondary. Or I have a lot
Miss
of
Benninger?
blue-green, so I'm going to use blue-green as my tertiary.
Miss
Yeah.
Benninger?
Yes.
Are those the colors you're going to use for your abstract painting?
Oh, no, not necessarily. No, I'm just teaching you guys how to mix paint. This is just an exercise. So you can, but you don't have to. All right, so
So choosing colors?
what's that?
So we're just choosing colors to paint?
Yeah, it's just an exercise. So like, for example, I used the green because I had a lot of it on my palette.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Okay, so I'm going to push pause on that demo or finish it up now. So you would be taking a photo of this on Friday and posting it as your final submission. And then it's always a good idea to put your name on it, even though you're posting on Schoology. And I will take a photo of this and post it on Schoology as well, along with the